This is the lesson for February 14th and 15th. What we're going to do is we're going to learn how to effectively and appropriately research things. And I'm just going to teach everybody how to research things on Google. So if you look here, the screen that everybody's going to walk in on when they come in is going to say, learn how to use Google Scholar to search for relevant information. Ultimately, what this is going to lead up to is on Thursday and Friday, we're going to begin writing an essay. And the essay is going to be, you're going to choose a topic of importance that you want to argue about, or you want to try to persuade somebody about. So what's going to happen is everybody's going to come in and grab a Chromebook, and you're going to log into your SSO. We're going to look at something called Boolean operators. We're going to look at Google Scholar features, which is an area of Google that you use for research. We're going to learn how to single out keywords and phrases, how to properly cite a source, categorize your search results, and we're going to learn how to narrow down searches so they're .edus, .govs, or .orgs, which is really what we're going to try and stick to. So anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that we're going to write an essay about the impact competitive sports have on mental health, on the mental health of adolescents, which is this first line right here. And so what we do here is, okay, if you put this entire thing in a Google search, so for instance, let's just say that I put that there, okay, you're going to get 51 million results, and then you're going to start going down here, the effect of team sports on mental health in adolescence, which is the closest thing that they have. But as you see here, 51 million results is a lot to go through. And so what we want to do is, and I mean, you don't want to have to go through and read that much stuff because time is money, and we really need to get through this essay as quickly as possible. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how to refine our results. So what we do is we want to focus on keywords, okay? The keywords in this are going to be competitive group sports, mental health, and adolescence, okay? So these are keywords, and what we're going to do is automatically we need to come up with some synonyms so we can narrow it down, or we can broaden the definition of something. So for competitive group sports, now, I mean, there's 51 million options, but one of the reasons why is because there's so many competitive group sports. So if we really want to get technical with our essay, we want to narrow it down to one or two competitive group sports. So you have to ask yourself, what do you think is going to be the most fun competitive group sport, or the most interesting group sport that you would want to write about? And, so we just kind of write down some keyword or some synonyms. Instead of competitive group sports, we say football, cheerleading, gymnastics, or soccer. On the mental health side, what mental health issue do we want to talk about? Anxiety or eating disorders? And when it comes to adolescence, we have to brainstorm a little bit and think to ourselves, okay, what other words could be used instead of adolescence? When we're talking about adolescence, we're talking about minors, teenagers, high schoolers, boys, girls, young adults. Okay, so now using the synonym, what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a new search. The impact of competing in elite gymnastics has on development of eating disorders in female gymnasts, okay? So now what we're going to have is we're going to have something that's a lot more refined. So if we put this in our search, and instead of 51,000, it goes to, it doesn't even, or 51 million, it doesn't even hit a million. 958,000. So we went from 58 or 50 something million results to 958,000. So as we see here, now we have fewer articles to read about, but they're going to be more refined in the sense that we've chosen to narrow down the topic so it would be something easier for us to write about and not so broad that we'll get lost in information. So now when I have to actually research something, I can research something that revolves around female gymnastics, that revolves around eating disorders, that revolves around the group sport of gymnastics, instead of every group sport possible, every mental disorder possible. So that's pretty much what we're looking at. Now, what we want to do is we want to go into Google Scholar, okay? So let me introduce you. If you don't know what Google Scholar is, let me introduce you to that. Okay, Google Scholar, all you do is you just go in, you type Google Scholar, and this is part of our Google program. You have an account, okay, with Google Scholar. And so now everything that you're pulling up is going to be a peer-reviewed article, which means that it's an article that's been reviewed, it's been verified, and it allows us to have acceptable source material for a research paper. It won't take us to blog posts written by random people. It won't take us to Wikipedia. It won't take us to websites that may, there could be websites that are pro anorexia, and maybe those websites are, giving out information where they're like encouraging people to develop anorexia in order to become an elite gymnast. And of course we want to stay away from that. So in Google Scholar, everything's been verified, everything's been peer reviewed. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that and we're going to put it in Google Scholar. And so now what we have is we have results that come up with eating disorders in elite gymnastics. As you see here, everything has been refined, everything has been narrowed down. And what you really want to pay attention to is if it says PDF, that's an acceptable source to use. So for instance, if I wanted to, read this article and see if it had any information that I could cite and use a source material for my paper, then I can click on this and it will give me a PDF. Okay, clinics in sports medicine, and we'll just go ahead and accept the cookies, is fine. Okay, so now I have, now I have something that allows me, that I can use. How about this one? Does elite competition inhibit growth and delay in maturation in some gymnasts? And I click on this PDF. And the actual PDF comes up, and now I can, kind of go through this. And let's say that I was reading this, and I thought that this right here was a good piece of source material. I can highlight it, and I can, find a way to put it in my essay. And then Google Scholar will even help me cite this if I needed to put it on a works cited page. So as you see here, this is pretty much a really good resource to use. Okay, so let's just kind of keep going a little bit. Okay, as far as Google Scholar goes, actually, let me kind of get back to this. Okay, now, what I've done is I've narrowed it down. The impact competing in elite gymnastics has on the development of eating disorders in female gymnasts. Now what I want to do is, in order to make the results a little better for me to use, that are going to be a little more essay and research friendly, I want to take this topic and I want to rephrase it as a question. Instead of just the impact competing in elite gymnastics has, now I rephrase it as a question. How does competing in elite gymnastics impact the development of eating disorders in female gymnasts? Or what eating disorders are commonly associated with female gymnasts? Okay, and now what I can do is I can take this question and I can put this in Google Scholar. So let me pull up Google Scholar here again. I didn't mean to get out of that. Okay, so now I'm in Google Scholar. Here we go. Okay. So now what I've done is I've actually put the question, how does competing in elite gymnastics work? So now I pull this up and it tells me that there's 4,720 results. Now that's pretty good. Instead of 51 million or instead of 958,000, now I've got 4,720 results that are peer reviewed that I can actually use in a research paper. Now, let's say that, let me just kind of show you what some of the little doodads are here. If I hit this star right here, then what that does is it saves it in a library. Okay, so let's say that I decide that, this is a good article that I want to read. I think I may use this for my essay, but I don't have time to read. Like right now, all I have time to do is just find the articles, and then I got to go to work, and then I got to come back, and now I can, get on my research paper. And so, I can create a new reading list, and I can say, read later. Done. Okay. And now when I come up here to my library, that right there is waiting for me to go into. So that's really sweet. I love that. As you see over here, if I want to cite the source for a works cited page, you just simply click on these quotation marks, and I have MLA format, APA format, Chicago, Harvard, and Vancouver, which we're just going to use MLA. So when it's time to make a works cited page, all I have to do is just highlight that and copy and paste. I mean, really, this is amazing. I love this. This right here lets me know that this particular article has been cited 34 times, which lets me know that 34 different people have used this article, this peer-reviewed article, when they're working on an essay covering some of the same information that I'm looking at. This one has been cited by 88. This has been cited by 222. So you're really looking at the ability to find out what articles are good according to the scholar population out there, and which ones I can actually use. This gives me related articles. So if I felt that this was a slam dunk article that I'm absolutely going to use in my essay, then I can come over here and click on related articles, and it gives me some from the very same, sometimes it'll come from, it'll be like the very same information. It may be from the very same author, which that's another thing that I can do up here. If I like the author, like let's say that I'm looking at this one and I really love the author, okay, I can click on this author, and then it'll show me all the other things that this, it'll give me information about this guy, and it'll, show me other things that he's written, and maybe I can use that. So, this is a fantastic, I absolutely love Google Scholar. It's amazing. Okay, so let me kind of point out something else. Let's say that I was going to be writing a paper about airport security. Okay, 477,000 results. Now, we know that airport security changed after 2001 because of September 11th. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a custom range of, let's say that I want to write a paper about the differences between airport security before and after 9/11. So I can put 2000, 2002. Okay, 16,400 results. How to really improve airport security. So there's just, it's a way for me to kind of, I can get articles that are newer and maybe, have more information that's current. And so it's a way for me to take care of that. That's really cool. Any type, it says review articles. So, I mean, like I said, Google Scholar is really, really cool. Like, I absolutely love it. And, let's say that I finish this essay and I really don't want to use this one anymore, then I can just come up here and delete this article. And now I no longer have anything in my library. So now I'm just going to go back to what I was looking at before. Okay, so anyways, this is just a way to kind of go over the different things that we're going to be looking at. Another thing that I wanted to let you know is that when it comes to using source material, you really want to stick with websites that are .edu, .org, or .gov, because .com websites are opened by anybody. But .edu, .org, and .gov websites they're verified. They're usually peer reviewed. They're usually official. And Wikipedia is an absolute no-no. You do not use Wikipedia. You cannot use Wikipedia when you're in college, and so therefore we're not going to encourage the use of it here. Now, there are ways around. You can kind of use Wikipedia to kind of guide you in a certain direction, and then you can maybe narrow down some of the results. But like I said, I can just show you that. So here's what we're eventually going to lead to. Okay, issues that are important in the world today. Now, I am simply putting these options up here because there's going to be, some of you guys are going to be like, I don't know what to write about. Well, then I'll give you some, okay? But we can pretty much just kind of go down the line and say, what issues are important in the world today? So obviously the essay that we're going to write is going to revolve around issues that are important in the world today. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to take one of those issues of interest, and I'm going to ask you to make some sort of argument out of it. So, some of the ones that I've come up with are anxiety, ADHD, peer pressure, COVID-19, sports, immigration, LGBTQ, discrimination, racism, minimum wage, universal basic income, trans athletes, gender wage gap, gender racial privilege, pronouns, consumerism, religion, voting age, drinking age, drug legalization, gaming, standardized tests. I think that these are, but this isn't it. You're not limited to this. You come up with something. I mean, have you been in a debate or in an argument or a discussion with somebody recently over something like this? Have you overheard an argument or a discussion? And now what you can do is you can kind of take that. So for instance, let's say that I'm really interested in sports. Okay, I've got some students in my fourth period, and man, they just talk sports all day. So let's say that I'm really interested in sports, but that's such a broad category. What exactly do I want to write about? Well, maybe I want to write about, when it comes to sports, maybe I think that college athletes should get paid. And so that's an argument right there. Okay, should or should not college athletes get paid? Should they get a salary from the university that's getting all of this money because this athlete is producing on the field and making their team and their school a lot more popular? They have jersey sales and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I personally, if I was writing a paper, I would absolutely argue that college athletes should get paid. And so what I would do is I would just take this category of sports and I would turn it into, college athletes getting paid. And then, of course, I go into Google Scholar and I ask myself, I phrase it as a question: should the college athletes be paid? Look, it finished it for me. Bam. 12,000 results, okay? Now, should college athletes be paid? Should elite college athletes be paid? 6,300. Should football college athletes be paid? 6,960. And so as you see here, it's starting to get a lot better. Should cheerleaders get paid? I mean, God knows how many different things you could write about, but Google Scholar is going to allow me to find some articles that are going to be a little pro, or and then I can even say, when it comes to writing a counter argument, should football college athletes be paid? And then maybe I can put in college athletes should not get paid. 9,120. So these are articles that are revolving around the opposite end, that they shouldn't be. And it's a good idea to read some of those because, like I've always said, when you're involved in an argument, you know that people are going to throw opposition in your face. You need to be ready to respond. And especially for a counter argument, you want to bring it up first, so you're showing some compassion for anybody who disagrees with you, and then of course you refute them. So as you can see here, this is what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to be writing this paper with everybody as they're doing it. So, for instance, I'm a minimalist, and so I'm going to come up with some ways that I'm sort of brainstorming things. Minimalism is the idea that possessions exist to serve a purpose. Okay, I don't own a lot of possessions that don't serve a purpose. I don't wear jewelry and I really don't feel that it serves a purpose. But I do wear a watch because a watch tells me the time, and my watch also allows me to time myself if I'm running or walking. Well, running, give me a break. Like if I'm walking. So anyway, how do I make this topic a point in an argument? Okay, so what I do is I come up with a prompt. Write an essay that argues whether or not society owns too many possessions. Okay, so I can kind of argue the concept of minimalism by saying that people own too many things. Write an essay that argues how minimalism is the best lifestyle. So maybe this isn't a paper where I'm going to try and persuade somebody. I'm not just going to argue the point. I'm going to try to persuade somebody to take on minimalism or to just quit owning things. So at this point, I can come up with all sorts of different ideas. Write an essay that argues, and I can come up with anything revolving around the concept of minimalism. Now, here's another topic that I may write about in some other classes. I was a big fan of Magic Bus 142, which I'll get into the story, in class. But there was a young man in 1994 who went to Denali National Park, and he found this abandoned bus in the middle of nowhere, and he lived there for about 100 days until he starved to death. And he kept a record of all of his what he did. He just kind of kept a journal. A lot of people used to make pilgrimages out to this bus and go visit it because they were touched by his life. And along the way, certain people died going out to this bus because they just weren't prepared for the hike that was involved, and they weren't prepared for the elements, or maybe they were killed by a bear, or maybe they suffered the same kind of fate that this young man did. And so what ended up happening is the Alaskan government airlifted the bus, and they've moved it to a museum. And I was really ticked off about it. I mean, I was furious. And so, I can sit here and go, how do I make this topic a point in argument? Write an essay that argues whether or not the Alaskan government was justified to move the Magic Bus from its original location. So obviously, I would write that they were not justified. Write an essay that is meant to persuade the Alaskan government, so I can pretend that I have the opportunity to talk to the Alaskan government and tell them, you really need to keep it where it is. Because of, just, I think, tourism in general. And then, of course, within the confines of my research, I can pull up data that, measures how many people have died going to the bus, how many people were making pilgrimages, how many people were visiting the state of Alaska in the interest of tourism just to go see this bus. And I was going to be one of those people. So, so of course, now I have a paper that I'm passionate about and that I can write about. And then the last thing that I'm going to challenge everybody to do is I'm going to, tell them, pick a topic that interests you. I want you to narrow down your topic to something specific. I don't want it to be too broad, okay? I don't want you to write about sports. I want you to write about a specific sport, or one or two or three specific sports. Something about it. Turn that topic into an area of argument or persuasion. Do I want to just make an argument, or do I want to try to persuade in my paper? And then I want everybody to come up with 3 prompts that require you to argue or persuade. So that's what we're going to be doing on Monday and Tuesday. And then, of course, Wednesday is a wash because we're doing that ELA 2 field testing. But when we come back on Thursday and Friday, I'm going to hope that everybody has their topic ready to go, and we can go ahead and start writing the introduction. And I'll be writing mine on the screen as everybody else is writing theirs. So anyway, that's what we're going to be looking at. If you have any questions, please email me. And if you need further explanation of things, then, it'll be a lot easier to show people in class what I'm doing. But if you need help with anything else, just let me know, and I can show you some of the things that we're going to be doing. Until then, I hope that you had a good weekend, and I'll see you soon.